Hello, and welcome to another Heavy Hands. I'm Connor. With me, as always, it's Phil.
Hey!
Hey, Phil.
How's it going?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm excited about a genuinely good top to bottom stacked UFC card. How long has it been?
Ooh, I remember there was a pretty good one, I want to say 2022?
It feels like it's been a long time. It feels...
It does.
Like we've had ones which have good main events, and we've had ones which are like good top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
But it really feels like it has genuinely kind of been years since we've seen them firing on all cylinders like this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure if I thought about it, like I would say that maybe like the first card, the big card that they did at the Sphere or something might have been stacked to this degree. But yeah, this is a card where it's just really good.
Mm-hmm.
And the fights aren't just like meaningful in terms of being, relevant, famous people that the UFC can put forward because they're, stars or champions or whatever. They're interesting.
They're interesting matchups. A true novelty. I would say, honestly, I think the last time, obviously it's not actually been years, I would say the last card that I would put on this sort of tier, just on paper, was UFC 317 in June, which was Topuria Oliveira, Pantoja Cara France. It had Joshua Van, Brandon Royval, Dariush Moicano, Peyton Talbot versus Felipe Lima.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's probably, and this might even on paper be arguably.
Oh yeah, this definitely is, right? This is the greatest women's fighter ever, I'm going to say, in Valentina Shevchenko. Sorry, Amanda Nunes. I think she's just beaten better people against another contender, sort of for that crown.
No question.
And yeah, and it's the UFC's current, one of their pound for pound top twos going up to fighting and going up to challenging a new weight class in a genuinely compelling fight, unlike honestly Topuria Oliveira was.
Yeah.
Because I just thought that Oliveira was going to get his head taken off.
Yeah, and wouldn't you know, he did.
Yeah.
This also features two champions who are themselves all-time greats, having given up their belts to go up a weight class. Stakes are a little higher, I think, as a result. And then on top of that, we just have like both quality names and quality matchups basically down the rest of the card, with very few exceptions. I mean, just on the main card still, we've got Sean Brady versus Michael Morales. That's a very significant fight. Leon Edwards versus Carlos Prates. That fight can't be anything but good for their welterweight division. That's potentially a very important turnover fight for the ranked contenders at 170. We've got Beneil Dariush, Benoit Saint-Denis, which is just like a cool, multifaceted action fight. Perfect main card opener material. And then right down to the prelims. Roman Kopylov, Gregory Rodriguez. Aaron Blanchfield, Tracy Cortez. A good fight. We've got a prospect showcase for Malcolm Wellmaker. Bo Nickel versus Rodolfo Vieira is hilarious and also genuinely compelling. Even down in the early prelims, Pat Sabatini, Chepe Mariscal. Like, you really honestly have to go down to the very first fight on the early prelims before you ask yourself what has become an all too common question with these cards lately, which is, why is this here?
Yeah.
Because we don't, sorry, fellas, but we don't need Eric McConaughey. He's not,
No, he's not. he's making up the numbers. Bro thinks he's on the team, kind of thing.
Yeah. But honestly, to have to go down to the literal curtain jerker to even say, is this necessary? That's the mark of a good card.
Yeah. I mean, it's simply the fact that this is, as they tend to be, a, what is it? 5, 9, it just doesn't need to be a 13 fight card. No one ever needs a 13 fight card, let's be honest.
No, certainly not. Also, since I gather we're both looking at the Wikipedia page, there is also another, it's actually a 15 fight card.
Oh, okay.
Because there's Vyacheslav Borsho versus Mateusz Camilo, which has not been placed on the Wikipedia page. So,
yep.
Gotta have far too many fights, Gotta bring down that average just a little bit. When people are really overflowing with praise for the lineup, gotta be like, but have you thought about this thing you would never think about?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, guys. Keep us grounded,
Yeah. They're doing their best, but this is still, a genuinely tantalizing fight card.
Hey, every great cocktail needs a bitter component.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think our lead-off fights are fairly obvious. We have 2 title fights at the top of this card. The first of them, reigning welterweight champion Jack Della Maddalena is taking on Islam Makhachev. After that, we're going to get into Shevchenko versus Zhang Weili at women's flyweight. I think we will then talk about, I think we've chosen Leon Edwards versus Carlos Prates as the fight we are personally most interested in trying to puzzle out. But we'll probably end up talking about quite a few of these at the end of the day. But with no further ado, let's talk about this welterweight title fight. It is, I was saying this before we started. As a viewer of the sport, I genuinely I appreciate the appeal of these like champions jumping weight class fights. Like it is an X factor, and X factors are interesting. How will Islam Makhachev's game be affected by, I think this might be the first fight he's ever had at 170. It seems quite possible he fought there early in his career. I'm not sure, but not known as a welterweight at all, has very little experience there. Yeah, he's fought at a catchweight of 165. And a catchweight of 160. So twice in his career, he's fought north of 155. I appreciate that is interesting. It interests me. As an analyst, someone who feels some responsibility to try to break this fight down and get into all the factors and paint a picture of how the struggle might play out, I hate these fights.
Mm-hmm.
Because I never seem to be able to develop like a pedagogy of how to analyze that X factor. It's different for everyone.
Yeah.
We've seen plenty of these fights where the small guy wins. It can really go either way. There are advantages and disadvantages, both to be the one going up and the one fighting down. But it is always just like a thing that I feel I have to acknowledge and then kind of set it aside. Like, I don't know. We'll see how it factors in here.
Yeah. It's also one which is obviously particularly challenging when you're talking about people who are jumping essentially straight from title fights at one.
Yeah.
Division to title fights in another. You are, by definition, in the arena where the smallest margins have the biggest impact.
Right. Yeah. Now, I suppose there would be less forgiving times to make that kind of jump, We saw GSP fight Michael Bisping. Was that the most challenging middleweight fight he could have ever taken? Definitely not. In this case, Makhachev is taking on a champion who has only just won the title. Admittedly, I do think Bilal Muhammad has earned some respect, some credence as a legitimately very good welterweight, and Jack Della Maddalena beating him the way he did should not be regarded as nothing. But Islam is not going up to fight like another champion of his caliber, of his level of accomplishment, let's say.
He's not fighting like Kamaru Usman.
Right.
At the height of his powers, let's say.
Like, for example, as Zhang Weili is in fighting Valentina Shevchenko.
Or Alexander Volkanovski when he fought Islam Makhachev.
Right, exactly. So that might color it a little bit, but still, I mean, the essential point stands. He's not going up there and getting his feet wet before he fights the best guy in the division, at least for now. There's another... go on.
No, I was just going to say something that we obviously touched on when we had the Volkanovski-Makhachev fights. And, something that made, especially that first fight, such a pleasure, is the rarity of competition when this kind of thing happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's so infrequent that we get some people jumping weight classes and someone doesn't just get blown out in one way or another.
Right.
Either in they just get their head ripped off because they're a stylistically horrible matchup against an incredibly potent hitter, Eddie Alvarez, Conor McGregor, Topuria Oliveira, and there's at least one other one that I'm thinking of here that just popped out of my head as I was thinking about it. But yeah, these ones are just quick annihilations, or it's just Valentina against Joanna, or, they weren't champions at the time, but Edgar Faber, where it's just like, one person is just bigger and like a more technical offensive wrestler, and they just, the idea of a competition is not it is not really like guaranteed with this kind of stuff. We've often with any kind of weird weight class jumping freak fight, we've often just got like surprisingly weird muted fights out of it.
Sure.
Which makes it very difficult to tell. Who would have thought that like Diaz Silva would actually just kind of suck. Just wouldn't be very good at all.
Or Cormier Silva, for that matter.
Yeah, exactly. This was, very much in Silva's let's try and spook people out and get as little of a fight as possible kind of part of his career. He probably takes the lion's share of the blame for a lot of it, but yeah, it's very, very difficult to predict what you're going to get. I mean, Faber Edgar just being kind of boring. Who really would have predicted that? I tend to agree. There's just they're very tantalizing from a matchup perspective, from a historical perspective, from the and from the original sort of MMA idea of let's put people together and see who comes out on top. But yeah, from an analytical perspective, they're sort of horrifying.
It's just sort of a nightmare, right? And the other wrinkle to that, which may factor in here, is that a lot of the fights we've seen where somebody goes up in weight and successfully demolishes their larger opponent, in fact, all of them, I would say, is a striker going up and being really fast and explosive and shocking the bigger man, right? And at times, in the examples of like Topuria Oliveira and McGregor Alvarez, also just having like a great stylistic edge. And of course, one of those is very funny because McGregor was in fact not smaller than Eddie Alvarez at all.
Yes.
He was significantly bigger than him. But still, as the guy who went up and fought in the new weight class, what we find in MMA, what I find in MMA is that power translates up very well compared to boxing. Because MMA fighters are much worse defensively. When they get hit, they tend to get hit much cleaner than boxers do. It's much easier to get surprised. And a huge factor of power is speed and acceleration. And those things can be really, really potent when you're the striker going up. Now, Islam Makhachev is by no stretch a bad striker. He is actually a very good one, I would say. But surely the most critical element of a matchup like this is whether or not Jack Della Maddalena, the man who scraped by Basil Hafez in large part due to bad takedown defense and bad wrestling decisions, bad grappling decisions, can withstand the wrestling and grappling of Khabib Nurmagomedov protege Islam Makhachev.
Yep.
And that's just another interesting wrinkle to the weight class change, because to the extent that we do understand these things, I think we know pretty well that going down in weight typically favors grapplers.
Yep.
And I would say the opposite is somewhat true. Going up in weight, in MMA at least, tends to favor strikers.
Yep.
And Makhachev is the one going up in weight. He will be fighting a bigger man. And you got to wonder how a potential size and strength disparity might affect what has at lightweight been an almost like completely indefensible wrestling and grappling attack. And I just don't know. I just don't know. My inclination is to say that Makhachev will still see some success with the wrestling and grappling, because he is one of the best takedown artists we've ever seen. And not only that, but when he secures takedowns, they tend to lead to sustained and dangerous top positions.
Yeah, and you know, as you kind of alluded to, this isn't one of the most crippling stylistic matchups he could possibly face.
Right.
I think what we've seen from Della Maddalena is a definite improvement in a game, in a part of his game which could be considered to be, you know, very flawed around the time of the Basil Hafez fight, to being something which is somewhere between a strength and a weakness by the time the Bilal Muhammad fight rolls around.
Right.
But yeah, we're not talking like prime Kamaru Usman, a towering hulk of an impossibly strong wrestling welterweight that it would be, you know, it's difficult to imagine any lightweight effectively taking down.
Yeah, who even now with, 0.3 complete knees between his two legs can still go out there and mop the floor with his opponents with his wrestling.
Yeah. And who still gave middleweight Khamzat Chimaev the current hardest fight that he's had at that division.
Yep.
Della Maddalena is someone who has fantastic instincts that he believes in a lot.
Yes.
And sometimes believes in too much. And this serves him well on the feet. I think his ability to his ability to take shots and take the sting out of them in order to be able to use them as data is a very kind of Robbie Lawler-esque part of his game that he has. He's not like reacting to strikes in the same way that other people are. He's trying to use them as a way to get to his opponent.
Yeah.
And I think he's a genuinely, truly fluid and instinctive fighter.
Yep.
In a way that, in some ways, I still don't think Islam Makhachev is.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is one of the things that I like about Islam Makhachev as the successor to Khabib and so on, is that he's always been, the more awkward, the more rote of the two.
Mm-hmm.
and that he's just like steadily built his game up over time. But regardless, as you know, the style matchup that he's facing is not an unwinnable one, because those instincts of Della Maddalena also lend him, primarily towards seizing moments of attack when he thinks that he can get them.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, the biggest part of this is the Basil Hafez fight, where he's just endlessly going for the same guillotine.
Uh-huh.
But he'll do it in almost every fight. He'll have at least one part of where he will just joyfully engage in a part of the fight that he shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
Like, when he's sort of steadily just about winning on the feet against Bilal Muhammad, and then he tries to he just tries to shoot a double leg on him and just gets hip tossed.
Yeah. And that's not an aspersion, by the way, that characterization of the fight. I want to remind people that fight was, in fact, a really great boxing performance from Bilal Muhammad.
Mm-hmm.
Really very high-level stuff of the kind that we don't often see in MMA. So Jack Della Maddalena just kind of edging him out on the feet, it looked and felt, and I think was, very impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
it's still probably the fight of the year, apart from maybe Royval versus
Van.
Royval versus Van. Yeah,
Royval Van is incredible, but there's something not to be incredibly cliche, but why fight it? The high-level speed chess match between Della Maddalena and Muhammad is really captivating. There's just a lot of excellent adjustments and good decisions made, and a real highlight for that instinct of Della Maddalena's that you mentioned before. That was a fight that made me appreciate his sort of mastery of tempo in exchanges. The extreme, principled opportunism of how he engages in exchanges. Slip a shot, there was no shot, fire anyway. Once you've connected, land another, create an angle. The connectivity, the fluidity. And I think what you were sort of alluding to is that instinct carries over into his grappling in a way which is much more double-edged than it is on the feet.
Yeah, I think he knows that he is a very good striker. I think that in his heart of hearts, even if he, in his subconscious, I think he thinks that he's a really good grappler as well.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes he just can't stop himself.
Yeah, at the very least, he's fearless about engaging in the grappling, which respect. Again, I think this is oftentimes as much a good quality as it can be a bad one. It's very double-edged because, when he did get taken down there by Bilal, it was his sort of attacking sensibility, not accepting a bad position, creating threats, that enabled him to get back up. And he also, after that takedown, when he got back up and he was stuck in a rear waist cinch, he used that little Nate Diaz style leg reap throw. Again, another attacking move to kind of buy the time and the space necessary to escape. So you see both the good and bad of this kind of aspect of his nature in that one grappling sequence. Yeah.
So, I think, essentially he's the Muhammad fight is difficult to assess, at least partially because Bilal gets very determined to try and win the striking battle.
Yeah.
And is just about close enough to being able to do it that he keeps trying over and over again.
Yep.
And it's only towards the end of the fight that he really starts to seriously go for the takedowns.
Yep.
Because it becomes apparent that he is not actually going to win like this. And he can get the takedowns. But the problem is that Della Maddalena can scramble out of them. Mm-hmm. He's just he elevates, he gets Bilal off of him, he sweeps him at least once, I think. But the question is obviously, will Islam shoot a lot more than Bilal does? Will he engage in the takedowns much more? And also, obviously, is Della Maddalena going to be able to scramble out from underneath Islam Makhachev in the same way that he can from the same way that he has from like under, well, I mean, Gilbert Burns, he was able to scramble away from relatively effectively. But
still spent a lot of time on his back, to be fair.
But yeah, quite a lot of time on his back and quite a lot of time in bad positions. Like he spent like the end of round 2 with Burns on his back. And yeah, will his scrambling get him into trouble?
Right.
And my initial thoughts are probably yes.
Mm-hmm.
That he gives up either his back or head attacks whilst he is getting up a lot of the time. And Islam is really very, very good at like both parts of these. He's an extremely good like snap down and like DARS and arm triangle attacking wrestler. He's now DARSed a lot of very good DARSed and or arm triangled a lot of very good fighters. And yeah, he's just got a incredibly principled and we were saying this with Fluffy Hernandez, but this is another level of this with Islam, just an incredibly well-constructed grappling game.
Yep.
He's extremely potent in the clinch. He's in terms of like working for knees, but then also using the opponent defending knees to get takedowns from there. And once he's got people down, he's both like a fairly dangerous top position ground and pounder, but also like one of the most dangerous submission threats we've ever seen in the UFC.
Like you could count the number of, but also like positionally, like anticipating the opponent's scrambles, using them to advance position. Like you can honestly probably count the number of times an opponent has successfully scrambled away from Islam on one hand.
Yeah.
Like, I think even
Volkanovski was able to cut off some of the takedowns, by basically, running to the fence, stripping the hands, and meaning that, Islam had to basically pull him backwards and then fall with him and to get him down rather than going for his normal clinch takedowns, which then allowed Volkanovski to kind of spin out of the rear waist lock and, get either a brief moment of top position or just get away. But like once you're on the floor, I don't even remember like once he's gotten top position. Yeah, I genuinely cannot remember. I think Oliveira used butterflies to Oliveira and Sarukian have used butterflies to get Islam off of him.
Yeah.
Off of them. But also worth noting, obviously, neither of those guys won those fights.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably the best anti-wrestling performance is the first fight with Volkanovski. I mean, I would even say definitely. Sarukian competed with him the whole way, but clearly lost. The Volkanovski fight, I still contend Islam Makhachev deserved the win there, but extremely competitive, and the most impressive aspect was just how difficult Volkanovski made it for Islam to continually outgrapple him. But it's exceedingly rare.
Yeah. And even then, I think this was very, and I think Della Maddalena is working with Craig Jones as Volkanovski was, So I think they did a very good job of preparing for Islam's cage wrestling game.
Mm-hmm. What was
But yeah, even
what was the trade-off for Volkanovski in that Makhachev fight, though? He kind of lost the striking.
Yeah.
And this is
well, it was also the fact that we might just have to reconcile with the fact that maybe Volkanovski just isn't that good against southpaws like a lot of.
Well, yeah. I don't think that's a problem for Della Maddalena, a guy who actually fights southpaw pretty comfortably and naturally.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's probably a factor too. But I also just think it's one of those things. I mean, we know at this point we've been watching and thinking about this sport long enough to know the tremendous deleterious effect that a credible takedown threat can have on a striker's process and their output and their accuracy. And if it doesn't, then the reason that it usually does fuck up your striking, if your striking looks normal, it's probably because your takedown defense is compromised, It's such a difficult thing to manage. And I think this is a reason why Makhachev has gotten so good at striking in a relatively short time, because he is just fundamentally unconcerned with the idea of the opponent taking him down.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't even waste time thinking about it. Like, if somebody's crazy enough to do it, as Volkanovski was, he's like, I'll handle it. And he did.
Mm-hmm. Same with Sarukian. Sarukian shot on him, he just sprawled and took top position pretty much every time.
Yep. And so we've just seen him get more and more comfortable in the striking because he is free to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to know if Makhachev can present a credible takedown threat to JDM, which I strongly suspect he will. It's hard to know how good JDM's striking will look with that new factor introduced. Maybe he's just fearless enough that it doesn't make a difference, but if we're comparing him to Robbie Lawler, it made a difference plenty of times for Robbie.
Yeah. I mean, I think those grappling instincts do show that he actually likes grappling a lot more than Robbie Lawler.
True. Robbie looked like a kid in timeout whenever he was taken down.
Yeah. I think JDM, I think he's just someone who, given infinite time, would become an amazingly good grappler as well, because he just seems to like it.
Yep.
He's got a weird tool set of esoteric tricks, and just seems like, but it's just not his thing. And the question is, that's why the question is that you get to the point of, do you get to the point of a grappling fight where we've talked about, the Jackson Wink weird trick school of fighting on the feet? That kind of thing can also play out on the ground, where you're like, he's never going to be expecting me to do this unorthodox get-up.
Uh-huh.
And if he actually does, he then immediately demonstrates why that's an unorthodox get-up, and you die instantly.
Yeah.
There's all the things, like all the people who have lived and died on leg locks and so on in MMA. There's a reason why the fundamentals are the fundamentals. But onto more X factors. Close stance southpaw striking fight, or at least southpaw fight in general. What's that going to look like?
Mm-hmm.
I suspect that it might cause Islam's kicking game, which is a big part of his approach, to be a little bit more muted.
Mm-hmm.
I do also think this tends to be a factor with people moving up in weight. They get a lot less comfortable kicking, because a lot of them, when they move up in weight, they've been bigger than everyone in their divisions, and they've just been booting small people in the head. And once they're up against bigger opponents, they stop kicking quite as much. A lot of people, I feel like, become much more boxing centric when they move up in weight. Yeah. I think the classic example of this would be like Donald Cerrone, right?
Right.
You look at welterweight Donald Cerrone, and he's just boxing all the time. And you're like, you're not that good at it though, Donald. So yeah, I think the combination of the weight change and the close stance matchup means we might not see quite as much of Makhachev's kicking game, which I think is actually a very important part of him as a range fighter.
Having said that, the kicks were present, but not as decisive in his fight with Southpaw Dustin Poirier.
Mm-hmm.
He did look quite comfortable with the ideas of a closed stance boxing match, however. His jab was really effective. Yeah. He was ending combinations with his right hook and pivoting off to get out from in front of Poirier very well. He was finding the body. So that is at least one example against another not totally dissimilar southpaw boxer from JDM, where he looked fine. And there's also the fact that JDM is not going to be southpaw this whole fight. I'm sure he will try, but he is a switch hitter and primarily an orthodox fighter, I would say.
Yeah.
We'll have a further opportunity to talk about the full complexity of a closed stance lefty versus lefty fight when we get to Leon Edwards, Carlos Prates. That will definitely be a factor to discuss in that one. Here it may at times be a factor. It's possible. It's not a factor at all. I mean, who knows? Maybe JDM thinks, I want to keep the range. I want to oppose his lead foot. Orthodox is the way to go.
Yep. But yeah, other things, obviously, other X factors. Yeah, obviously the weight. Makhachev has bulked up. And it's always challenging to know whether that's a good idea or not. Mm-hmm. Like, I've heard the Della Maddalena camp just being like, well, that's stupid. He's just going to get really tired.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's very possible against Della Maddalena keeps a very high pace in every area of the game that he can. He's constantly feeding information to his opponent.
Yeah. And seems to have a great gas tank and a tremendous ability to fight tired one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. And there's also the fact that I didn't think Islam looked very good physically in the Poirier fight. I thought it was like in some ways a career best striking performance from him, like you said, especially against a very weird and tricky fighter in Poirier, and who became tons more prepared than he did against, maybe not just more prepared, but less freaked out than he was against Khabib. I just thought Islam was starting to look a little bit slow.
I think he definitely wore himself out. I mean, I kind of conclude that it's because it was so much striking, and that grappling seems like it's inherently more tiring, but grappling is Islam's comfort zone, where I think he will probably always have a stamina edge on whoever he's grappling with, if there is any edge to be had at all, because he's incredibly efficient and comfortable there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I agree. He definitely started to flag in that fight, more than we've seen in many others, but a lot of it was spent just exchanging with Poirier on the feet and using footwork to fence him out. But I don't disagree. It's something to.
And this is late era Dustin Poirier.
Yeah.
Who is a slow man.
Yep.
And like at no point in this fight did I think like that Makhachev actually looked like particularly quick. Not even at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, and as we've said, I don't think Makhachev is the physical force that Khabib is.
Right.
And I think there is a possibility that like another reason for him, a reason for him moving up is simply that he's starting to physically decline, and he needs to take big shots at greatness while he can.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe the weight cut is getting hard for him. At he's now 34 years old as of October.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen lots of fighters extend their primes to crazy extents recently. Usyk being one of the biggest examples. But yeah, Makhachev has never really struck me as one of those, as a like physical superpower who's going to maintain.
Athlete.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just an X factor. I think it's difficult to put anything out there about it.
Yep.
But I definitely could see a more heavily muscled Islam getting put into a fight like that Poirier fight with someone who is closer to their prime and bigger and faster paced and getting genuinely knackered.
Yep. Or getting
because it
fucking obliterated,
Yeah.
That step knee that Della Maddalena found on Gilbert Burns. Or, like he's a fairly nuclear hitter, and as we've said multiple times, a really fluid, natural, organic striker in the pocket, seizing on these little openings with just a perfectly placed, perfectly timed strike. Yeah.
And we know, thanks to Adriano Martins and Volkanovski and others, Makhachev does not have the Nurmagomedov chin genetics.
Right.
You ain't just going to be bouncing stuff off his face and having him be mildly rattled by it.
Yep.
But yeah, and the fact that he couldn't really get that many, round-winning takedowns on Dustin Poirier, who's not a famously good defensive wrestler. So yeah, you have to balance the fact that like Bilal didn't really go for that many takedowns on Della Maddalena, with the fact that Makhachev either didn't go for or couldn't hit that many on Poirier.
Yeah.
Like once again, he got like fence exchanges. He got him up to the cage, but he got fought off at least once. He managed to get him down by the cage. Obviously, he ended up taking him down and finishing the fight. But as I said, this is Poirier getting towards the end of his career.
Right. Yeah. He's still banked. I have some pretty clear images of some top control moments he had in that fight in my mind, but I wanted to check the stats.
Oh, Poirier has scrambled out from under Islam Makhachev. There we go. He scrambled out in round 3.
That's true.
Yeah.
Makhachev is credited with 5 takedowns of 16 attempts.
Yeah.
For a total of 10 minutes of control time. And of course, one of those takedowns was extremely definitive. Led to an immediate finish. But, they're not that is a great example of a fight where, I still kind of think watching that one, I just think it's a going for glory, I have given up all my fear kind of fight for Dustin Poirier. Where despite the age and everything, mentally he was really just firing on all cylinders in that fight.
Yep.
But
I think it's the greatest strategic performance of his career.
Yep.
Like hands down, like just an incredibly courageous fight against what anyone would consider to be just a totally unwinnable style matchup.
Yep. But it's worth wondering what extent Islam's age may have played. Who knows? It might come.
God, I never really thought about how similar Poirier and Della Maddalena are until this point.
They're quite similar.
The whole jumping the gilly thing.
That too. Yeah. Poirier's got a little Robbie Lawler in him too. There's no denying it.
And Poirier is also, like Della Maddalena, and unlike Robbie, though, a genuinely good grappler.
Yep. At least somebody who is enthusiastic about it. Always the funniest facet of Robbie Lawler is just how howdy he looks.
Oh my God.
This fucking pussy is not exchanging blows with me. But yeah, I mean, who knows? Like, maybe we'll go in here and it's like Makhachev was sort of secretly struggling with that weight cut, and he moves up and he looks totally refreshed and perfectly durable and fast and has great stamina at 170. That's again why these things are a nightmare analytically. There's all kinds of things that can happen when you make a big change like this.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm going to pick Islam Makhachev.
I've gone so back and forth on this. Like, I don't think Islam's going to look great up a weight class. I didn't think he looked like he was still as quick. I think, I thought he looked slower against Poirier than he did against Volkanovski, which is bad when you're considering your comparators are Alexander Volkanovski and Dustin Poirier.
Right.
One of whom is slow and one of whom is fast. You would expect it to be the other way around, but I thought he looked slow. So I was like, he's going to go up and he's just not going to be able to physically keep up with a big, high-paced welterweight. And then I was like, but what if Jack Della Maddalena's game just doesn't function against an opponent that doesn't allow you to make mistakes in the grappling?
Yep.
What if his game is just like, what if he is just like one weird trick on the ground that he tried, three weird tricks on the ground, and then they get solved.
Yep.
And his game hasn't actually been built to deal with like truly definitive fight-ending grappling ability. This is what we always used to talk. Yeah, this is what we always used to talk about with like flyweights, right? Is that because everyone was so good at scrambling, it led to a
niche,
birth of just like back take specialists who are just like, and just people who have learned, here are the choke points, no pun intended, where you can simply stop a scramble.
Right.
This is where it ends.
And also what happens to somebody who's used to never-ending scrambles when the scramble ends decisively? Does their game function? How are they on defense when they can't just fly out of a bad position?
Yeah, and I think it was either John Jones or Daniel Cormier who said this about Alexander Gustafsson. They were like, he has 30 seconds of like really good scrambling in him.
Yeah. And
then when his shoulders hit the mat after that, he's going to be pretty cooked. And they were right.
Yeah. What does JDM's defensive acumen look like if somebody is planted on his back for 2 minutes? How good is he at fighting the hands? How many does he make a really risky move and put both hands on the mat and get strangled? We don't really know.
And yeah, so that was what I found myself thinking, like maybe he's just not built for checkmate kind of grappling.
Right.
And then I went back to just like being he's just like big. He's just big and he's going to be high paced and I don't trust where Islam is, so I'm going to pick JDM. And for me it is going to be a sadness hedge. Cuz again, been a big fan of Islam all this time, and I've enjoyed watching him like climb out of Khabib's shadow. And I would like to see him win this as well. But I can't help but shake the feeling that like this is that he never had like the unlimited tank of athleticism that so many people had, and that like him moving up is at least partially an attempt to both conserve that tank and spend it in the most significant ways, to try and quickly get wins over the welterweight champ, as well as one of the greatest in featherweights, if not the greatest featherweight of all time. And to have been the greatest lightweight of all time. You know, he's trying to grab it all before he can't anymore. But I do worry that we might be approaching that point after seeing him grit out an incredibly tough physical win and then get one of those other wins over
Moicano,
which are, you know, often the ones that you see in retrospect where you're just like, oh yeah, of course they utterly destroyed that person. You know, someone just gets a brief, you know, ability to style on someone that they absolutely always would have styled on. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh yeah, all is well. I don't know if all is well. I would like for all to be well. Again, I would love to see him once again prove himself. But I have a bad feeling.
Yeah, I can't lie and say that I don't feel it too. I don't think I would be particularly shocked if Jack Della Maddalena could knock Islam Makhachev out.
Mm-hmm. If Adriano Martins could knock you out, Jack Della Maddalena can knock you out.
Yeah, been a long time since that Martins fight. On the other hand, it's been a long time since that Martins fight.
Yes.
So yeah, I would not be particularly shocked, but I just think I still don't fully know Jack Della Maddalena, and a lot of the things I do know about him are somewhat intangible. Somewhat difficult to define, and perhaps therefore very mutable, given a tough stylistic matchup. And I do think there's a very good chance that Islam Makhachev, weight class change, age, wear and tear, whatever, may be a very difficult style matchup for him, as he has been for so many lightweights. You know, like, who's to say Jack Della Maddalena, who in the right matchup with a very boxing centric Bilal can look genuinely brilliant, doesn't end up looking like all of those like forgettable Renato Moicano tier wins. You know what I mean? Like, there's a chance that we look back and we're like, well, yeah, of course Islam fucking choked him out in 4 minutes.
Yeah.
That's what he does to people.
You know, what if Basil Hafez was one of the best submission grapplers we've ever seen, huh? Yeah.
You know, it's a tantalizing matchup. And again, the fact that Islam gave up his belt to do it, I honestly do appreciate the fact that the UFC is, in all the horrible ways they put pressure on the fighters, I think that's a pretty sensible one. Hey, you want to move up? You can't clog up 2 divisions, given that you're going to fight at most twice a year.
Yep.
So the fact that he is vying for a new belt and doesn't have one to go home to only makes this one more tantalizing. And on that note, let's take our first break so that we can return to talk about another fight where that is the case. Valentina Shevchenko, that's right, the evil queen of boredom herself, will be defending the women's flyweight title against strawweight GOAT, at least GOAT contender, Zhang Weili. We're going to talk about that after this.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to this week's Heavy Hands. If you like what you hear, please consider pledging to support the podcast on Patreon. Patreon is basically continuous crowdfunding. You sign up to contribute a certain amount per month to help us with production costs and the like, and in return you get rewards ranging from a mention on the Heavy Hands website to a question or topic of your choice being discussed on the show. We have a lot more in the works to reward you for your help, and we appreciate every contribution. No amount is too small. Just head over to patreon.com and find how you can help out, the only show dedicated to the finer points of face punching. Now let's get back to it.
Welcome back to Heavy Hands. Let's talk about a women's flyweight super fight. Valentina Shevchenko, once more, the reigning and undisputed women's flyweight champion, is taking on former strawweight champion Zhang Weili. And it's hard not to view this as one of the more interesting fights for either woman at this point, at this current...
One of the.
Okay, I was trying to be...
Come on.
I was trying to be measured, fair and balanced, but yeah, fair enough.
Why?
Valentina Shevchenko long ago cleared out her division. I mean, she does have a new crop of contenders kind of settling in now, but she's already dealt with one of them. Meanwhile, Zhang Weili she had Rose Namajunas, and she started her championship run at the end of Joanna Jędrzejczyk's run, and I would say the sort of fading years of Jessica Andrade's time as a top contender and all of that. But she reached a point in her championship reign where she was fighting the horrifically ill-equipped Tatiana Suarez. I think now is a better time than any to move up and try to find a new challenge. So basically the most tantalizing matchup possible for either woman at this current point in time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There is no one else for either one of them at this point, I think, really.
Mm-hmm.
You could seriously consider as, I mean, Shevchenko can fight the rest of her division forever until she gets old, or until, someone just gets a fortunate moment like it turned out Grasso did.
Mm-hmm.
And
she would happily do that,
but yeah.
too. She loves nothing more than to crush the rest of us under the sort of just cold brutality of her title reign. I don't know. I know Uber killed the cab driving industry. Are there a lot of female Uber drivers out there that Valentina Shevchenko could take on?
There probably are.
Mostly dudes, in my experience, actually. Why aren't women driving
Uber? Yeah, there's still probably enough. But I think this is an interesting matchup between active game planning versus a sort of passive neutralization.
Mm-hmm.
Valentina has made her greatness by being the rock against whom all opponents must crash.
Mm-hmm.
She is simply going to stand there at range, wait for them to do something stupid, and then punish them for it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's taking them down, heading with a counterpunch, or spooking them out and doing nothing. But basically, she has an incredible control of range that she is never going to give up. And she will simply, and in some ways, it does not matter what kind of opponent she has in front of her, she will run the same game every single time.
Yeah.
Whereas Weili Zhang has been someone who's been obviously much more fun to watch, at least partially because she comes up against, typically quite flawed opponents, but also then comes with incredibly well-considered game plans, which she uses to obliterate them.
Yes.
So obviously, from our perspective, the first tendency is that I would want to pick Weili Zhang. I mean, I think, from the first thing that we would mention in these kind of things, which is the size, Weili is a very big strawweight, and I don't know if Shevchenko is actually the biggest flyweight. She was notably smaller than, for example, Manon Fiorot. And, given the ability to impose her game, I would be very, very tempted to pick Weili Zhang in this fight, because that's the kind of thing I want to see. I want to see someone like Weili Zhang who figures out an opponent and then and then destroys them for it. Someone who is actively engaging with everything that happens rather than this, slightly disdainful game plan of just like, well, I'm going to go out here and do exactly the same thing, and you're not going to be able to deal with it no matter who you are.
It's two kind of things we want to see, because we want to see Zhang Weili as champion and Valentina Shevchenko living in a dumpster.
Yeah. Well, you do. I don't.
Yeah, to put some numbers on it, by the way, Shevchenko is 1 inch taller. She does have a 3.5 inch reach advantage, which seems odd, because she doesn't really have long arms.
Mm-hmm.
But she's quite close to Zhang Weili in dimensions, and I would assume that Zhang is going to look about as filled out as Shevchenko, about as muscular too. They're in the same realm of size.
Yep. And there's many ways in which you would expect people, the Weili Zhang team that we've seen, to be able to game plan for Valentina. Mm-hmm. We've seen that, essentially the issue is always that single slice of range. And the Zhang team, particularly in fights like, I think, the Lemos fight, there's fights like the Suarez fight, which are, I think, not particularly relevant or useful in this particular fight, but just because Suarez is such a mess on the feet, and all Zhang needed was like a counter wrestling approach.
It does demonstrate that once Zhang has sort of gained the confidence that she can fully deal with the entirety of her opponent's game, she will go out there and start beating their ass.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we saw in that fight, which, I would be surprised, but maybe somewhat relevant here. I mean, I think this is a matchup where the approach that Zhang's team has to game planning, which, as far as I can tell, is quite granular. They don't do
Yeah.
There's plenty of, basic big picture stuff too. Like, we got to put the pressure on this person, so on and so forth. But they really do. Our boy Ghost, they seem to really pick a couple of really specific technical things they're looking for. This person drops their guard when they throw this shot, or this is the tell that they give when they throw this shot. So you got to be ready and looking for that. And they react to this shot in such and such a way. So you have to have this follow up prepared. Quite specific tactical preparation.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, Valentina Shevchenko has quite the pared down game.
Yeah, there is little difference between strategic and tactical for a Valentina Shevchenko fight,
right,
because she is consistent to the point of utter monotony.
Yeah, there's not a huge,
and this is why her first and really only big upset came on the back of a tactical read where they were like, "Oh yeah, she just goes for spinning techniques, and then you take her back."
Right.
So yeah. And as I said, like the Lemos fight was one where they were like, we need to double jab our way into range. She will respond for the counter shot. We will counter the counter. We will go from there.
Yep.
This is exactly the kind of stuff you want to use on someone who is attacking you when you enter their slice of range.
Yep.
You need to have ways to diffuse them. On the other hand, Weili has really, despite all her tactical and strategic changes, has evolved in a very specific direction as like a sort of grappling focused fighter.
Definitely.
And this has served her very well in that she's been fighting people who are either suck at grappling or suck at striking. and meaning that she's able to completely shut down Tatiana Suarez's wrestling attempts, but she's also able to crush Amanda Lemos on the floor. Has Weili Zhang ever looked good in a slow-paced outside kickboxing match?
Right.
By which I mean both the Namajunas fights and also her first fight against Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
Yep.
And this is where I start to get worried. And this is where I also think about things like how bad Rose Namajunas has, not how bad, but how unimpressive, like, Rose Namajunas has looked since she went up to flyweight.
Mm-hmm.
Or, the fact that Jessica Andrade was an absolute physical force as a strawweight, went up, knocked out, I can't remember who it was. Was it Chukagian, maybe? And then got a title shot against Shevchenko, and then got utterly manhandled.
Yeah.
Like a physicality difference went immediately out of the window.
Yeah. Granted, she also got fucking nuked by Zhang back down at strawweight.
Yeah. But it wasn't just that, Zhang just,
right.
obliterated her in kind of the same way that Namajunas herself, in fact, came very close to doing.
Right. Yeah.
But, Shevchenko just threw her around.
Yep.
She was like, oh, I'm a better wrestler than you, and we are actually, at parity in terms of physical strength, and now you are being exposed.
Zhang blew her apart with one shot, basically. Shevchenko dismantled her.
Yeah. And so we've simply seen that the explosive physical forces of this division have not been the physical forces up at flyweight. And again, it's that fact that Zhang hasn't been able to win these kind of fights historically. She's still not a defensively particularly good striker.
No.
Do I expect her she may, even if they train, ways for her to get inside, as we've seen against Grasso, Valentina Shevchenko can in fact adapt, and she's just been doing this for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that Zhang she's a curious case of a fighter who I think. It's a good thing her preparation is as consistently good as it is, because
I think it gives her anchors.
Yeah, I think she really needs it. I don't think, particularly out at range. I mean, I think she has shown a real natural proclivity for controlling and winning scrambles.
Mm-hmm.
As a striker, I think she's often prone to looking a little at sea. I don't think she has a real natural comfort for distance or timing. And in the case of that first Jędrzejczyk fight, for example, she can make it close by sort of just forcing the issue. That was a fight where she just kind of insisted on exchanging with Jędrzejczyk.
Yep.
And many of those, if not most of those, being exchanges where she got hit first and it was just firing back. Or then you have moments like, the first fight with Namajunas, where she's just sort of burning time and reacting and gets suckered.
Yes.
She doesn't look particularly comfortable or potent in the second fight with Namajunas on the feet either.
No, I mean, it's mostly, again, this isn't actually a good sign. It's the fact that Namajunas out-wrestles her that wins Namajunas that fight. And again, that probably wouldn't happen nowadays with Weili Zhang. She's become a much better wrestler. But she wasn't able to win the striking very convincingly. She wasn't winning the striking convincingly either.
No.
And again, we're talking a bigger, more physically powerful, and less dissuadable fighter that she is going up against on the feet.
Yeah, it's a tough one to wrap my head around, because, as I said, there is really very little to consider. Very few kind of reads you have to encode if you're fighting Shevchenko. On the other hand, Shevchenko wins fights with this really pared down approach, I think in large part due to like tremendous mental stamina.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
she's never going to get tired fighting her fight,
or bored, or distracted. You know what I mean? Like she's. This is it sounds like a joke because I've described so many of her fights as boring, but like she is impervious to boredom. You know, like, and this is the thing. Like, you know,
it's like Machida or Stephen Thompson or someone like that. They're just never gonna run out of steam fighting like that.
She's like,
mentally.
You've given me permission to make this comparison because you used the word checkmate earlier, Phil. She's like Magnus Carlsen.
Yep.
She
is just like Magnus Carlsen. You're right. You are exactly right.
In this one
No, that's enough. We've heard the comparison. You are correct, Connor. Valentina Shevchenko, she's like Magnus Carlsen. The greatest to ever do it in one of the most significant competitive areas of, human history. You are right. Don't even say anymore. The end.
But this
segment is over. All right, what are we talking about for segment 3?
Shut the fuck up.
Oh, we got to do picks. Let me
make my fucking
Valentino.
point.
Obviously, she's the Magnus Carlsen of MMA and probably the world. I'm picking her. What's your pick? Are you picking Weili Zhang because you're bitter about how good Valentina is? Is that what you're doing? Okay, Connor's picked Weili Zhang. I'm picking Valentina Shevchenko. Obviously.
First of all.
All right. See you all after this.
First of all, Phil, I'm a Kasparov guy. All right. I think it's still in question whether Magnus is the greatest of all time. All right. Gary Kasparov exists, and he's still actually very good at chess, even though he's like 60 years old, and he believes in that weird chronology thing where Jesus was actually Russian and lived 300 years ago.
Ooh.
But this is this particular ability of Magnus Carlsen's that has won him many games. This is a man who wins theoretically drawn positions all the time. He squeezes water from a stone because he can just drag the game out. And classical chess games are very, very long. And matches are even longer. It's a series of games that each last hours. And mental stamina is incredibly important. And it is a particular strength of Magnus's. I think in that respect, Shevchenko is similar because she can have these fights which are just like tedious and repetitive, and other people you lose focus. You lose the ability to remain sharp when it's just like she's just rigorously maintaining the distance and trying to punish you with like one single shot every time you attempt to break through, and then resetting and occasionally just punishing your reckless attempts to do something, like it's tough. I do wonder if Weili Zhang, those Namajunas fights I think could be very instructive. Like, does she have the ability to stay sharp and focused and attentive in a long, drawn-out, and frankly dull fight? I'm certain that Shevchenko does. And I even think for Shevchenko, this same quality can be kind of transmuted into like a real comeback spirit as well. Like, she just... whether it's a theoretical draw or a lost position, like she will continue engaging wholeheartedly, fully focused on what she's doing. We've seen it many times. I think this is a very difficult fight to call, honestly. Very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
I just really don't know what Zhang's game plan is going to be. Maybe it should be the woman who goes out there and just straight up out wrestles Shevchenko. Shevchenko has not always displayed actually good takedown defense or good instincts off of her back.
Yeah, very true.
That willingness to ride out, sort of neutral positions, that can rear its head in a very negative way when she's taken down.
Yeah. Jennifer Maia, Juliana Pena, etc. have, put her on her back, and her ways out of it have been either do nothing or they hit like an arm bar.
Right.
I don't think she's going to be arm barring Weili Zhang.
I would be surprised.
So yeah, maybe it just turns out that one of the things that Shevchenko has simply almost never faced is just like a good technical wrestler.
Yeah.
Could be the case.
But even if that is the case, it will require Zhang, I think, to put on some pretty concerted pressure. Again, it's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
When people have insisted on breaking through the kind of shell of defense around Shevchenko, she's not comfortable there.
No.
We saw that in the first Grasso fight. And in large part, that was somebody making one great tactical bit of prep and catching her out. It was also the only time in those three fights that Grasso really insisted on pressing Shevchenko and closing the gap with combinations. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't like being in the pocket. That's like the whole reason her style is the way it is she wants to keep you contained at bay. Can Zhang do that? How much preparation does it take to, and maybe if it leads to like a clinch where she feels confident and she gets a nice throw, that will encourage her to keep up the pressure for the rest of the fight. But it's not something I'm really used to seeing from her. She tends to be much more sort of herself, considered, and relatively low output in range battles. Even against Tatiana Suarez, she wasn't barnstorming her after she realized she had the advantage everywhere and Suarez started to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
She was just hitting her with largely single, precise, devastating shots. I'm gonna take Zhang Weili.
I know. I already said you would.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why we've had this last. How many?
Sorry.
I explained everything.
Cut that.
Yeah.
Cut the last 6 minutes.
Yeah, of course. We said that she was Magnus Carlsen, and then I said I would be picking Valentina Shevchenko, and then I said that you'd be picking Zhang, and then you just went like blah blah blah, and I've just been kind of nodding, and it's just been flying past me as it's presumably been flying past all the listeners.
In this metaphor, Zhang Weili is Hans Niemann.
Mm-hmm.
She's got a vibrating butt plug, which is going to transmit the correct combinations from her corner.
That's been the secret to her game plans all along. That particular vibration is code for 2, jab, 3. Jab, right hand. Yeah.
But I think I will take Zhang Weili, but I honestly don't feel I can make a super watertight case for it. I think there is as much a chance that some of Zhang's worst tendencies on the feet become a real hurdle for her getting to the area where she may be able to really test Shevchenko. On the other hand, she may find that Shevchenko is really strong and is threatening with takedowns of her own and is a very capable clinch fighter. And we might see a bit of what we saw in that Shevchenko-Andrade fight.
Mm-hmm.
Or Shevchenko-Jędrzejczyk for that matter, where she's just a fucking hoss.
Yep.
But I'm going to take Zhang. Wish casting.
Yep. No, I'm sadness edging. Both these fights.
Okay. Taking Shevchenko. But that's what that means?
Yep.
Okay. We all know you don't hate Shevchenko the way I do, but it's still a sad.
No. But I would still definitely rather see Zhang Weili win this fight. Let's not kid ourselves.
All right. Well, on that note, let's take a break. And when we come back, Leon Edwards, Carlos Prates after this.
Financial support is fantastic, but there are other, even easier ways to support Heavy Hands. Perhaps the best is by spreading the word. We know our fan base. You're all cool, popular people with serious social media presences. You're tastemakers and trendsetters. okay, there are one or two of you that don't fit that description. You know who you are, but no matter what, you can always help us out by telling folks about the show. And you can also give us a positive rating and review on iTunes and things like that. We rely on word of mouth and positive feedback to grow and improve, so thank you very much for your time and your help. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back. We're talking now about welterweights, Leon Edwards, Carlos Prates. An odd one.
Yeah.
An odd one. In large part due to Leon Edwards.
Yeah.
Where is Leon Edwards at right now in his career? Signs indicate not a great place. Signs indicate he may in fact be in fighter's hell, also known as Birmingham. Has not looked confident. A guy who has often struggled to look consistently confident has looked consistently not confident, I would say, in his last two fights. Granted, Bilal Muhammad had a perfect game plan. Was also, before that Jack Della Maddalena fight, his best ever boxing performance, on top of the intense pressure and relentless wrestling attack he brought to Leon Edwards. A perfect bit of prep to prevent Edwards from ever really getting into the fight in a sustained way, taking advantage of a career-long tendency to waste time and give ground. And then Sean Brady really just copy-pasted Bilal Muhammad's game plan with similarly great results. Couple all the same ideas with slightly clumsier but no less insistent boxing and sharper, more potent submission skills.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, we've watched Leon Edwards. We haven't seen him win since December of 2023, and the two fights since then, we have basically seen him lose the same fight two times.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to say which one's more damning. No, it isn't. It's Sean Brady. Sean Brady one is very damning.
He does not look good in that fight.
No. Yeah. I mean, the Bilal fight is close. It's the first time that he's had to deal with that kind of fight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Kamaru Usman brought it to him.
Yeah.
For a good bit of their time together.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, specifically, it's the first time he's had to deal with that since really the first time he fought Kamaru Usman. Like, Kamaru Usman Edwards 1 is probably closer than, is Usman's most aggressive, pressuring performance against him.
I think you may be forgetting most of Usman Edwards 2.
Maybe.
That's a fight where really Usman takes his foot off the gas in the 5th round and then dies. But up to that point is putting a lot of pressure and pinning Edwards against the fence and beating up his body, et cetera, et cetera. But, it's a style we've known that he struggles with. Definitely the first time we've seen him lose to it that way. And then lose even worse to it against Sean Brady.
Yeah. I mean, the Sean Brady fight is, as I said, particularly damning because he cannot find any way out of the hole. Mm-hmm. The Edwards fight is close. The Brady fight is a domination.
Yeah.
And it's just that he's unable to find. Yeah, he's just unable to find anything.
Yeah.
He's always been an inconsistent or odd fighter, but he's never been one who just lets rounds go like that.
Right.
We always used to praise him for being someone who would always have a moment,
right,
but in a fight, but that he never let it cost him fights, like for example Jorge Masvidal would.
Right. Quite resilient. Will go down into the hole, but will claw his way back out. Yeah,
the Brady fight, he just went into the hole and just stayed there.
Yep, it's just a
slope. Brady, as soon as Brady started throwing in combination, he just froze up. And that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so the Prates fight. I mean, on the one hand, there's obviously the idea that like some version of Prime Leon Edwards could just crush Carlos Prates, at least partially, because I really suspect that Prates is not a good takedown defender at all, and we've simply barely seen anyone try to take him down, with the exception of a very scared Ian Gary, who, and let's be fair, immediately did so.
Yeah.
Without much resistance. Prates went down like a big noodly man as soon as Gary tried to take him down.
Yep.
And Leon Edwards, has his dangerous clinch game, which completely disappeared against Sean Brady. But there's still the idea that there's still just the possibility that even a prime Leon Edwards with a good game plan would still have one of his moments where he just, be off in La La Land and would allow his opponent just like 5 to 10 seconds to do the worst thing they could imagine.
Yep.
And that he could do that against Carlos Prates, who would then savagely knock him out.
Yep. If Brian Barberena can catch you out with like a big uppercut late in a fight or midway through, if a version of Nate Diaz, so aged that he has started answering to the name Nathan, can kind of catch you sleeping in the 5th round, then certainly Carlos Prates can do it at virtually any point in the fight. Like, he is so much more dangerous a striker than basically anyone Leon has ever fought. Bigger, faster, harder hitting than basically anybody on this entire resume. It's just such a different welterweight division than it was when Leon Edwards was around or on top, isn't it?
Yep.
You look through his resume of like great wins, and it's like, Kamaru Usman's on there all over the place. Couple fights with Bilal Muhammad, not wins per se, but you got like Dos Anjos, Gunnar Nelson, fucking German grappler Peter Sabata, Colby Covington's in the mix, of course. Like, there's so many wrestler grapplers in there, and that's really like who Edwards cut his teeth against. I suppose that's also why it's so damning that he has now lost to 2 wrestlers. Because, like, you'd like to imagine that a guy could be surprised late in his career when he, like, for example, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, anti-wrestler striker.
Yep.
And developed a really tremendous defensive wrestling game and a striking game which was built to punish people who would, of course, endlessly try to take her down. And then we see her fight like Rose Namajunas, who just dices her up on the feet. Or Zhang Weili, who at the very least gives her a ton of trouble in their first fight. And you're like, okay, that kind of makes sense. She cut her teeth, destroying people who wanted nothing to do with her on the feet. That's the structure of her game. The structure of Leon Edwards' game has largely been like dealing with wrestlers even on his own terms, out-wrestling them sometimes, and then also having like a speed and accuracy edge on the feet to bolster that. So, like, if I hadn't seen the Muhammad and Brady fights, I might still be looking at this and thinking maybe Prates, like, this dude is just a striker through and through and a deadly one. Maybe Leon Edwards is not prepared for that. But we have also seen Leon Edwards lose twice now to guys who were very much in line with the sort of fighter that he was facing in his prime.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, game plan aside, if you are beating Kamaru Usman twice,
right,
and losing to Sean Brady,
right, something's gone wrong.
Something has gone wrong. And Bilal Muhammad, like something, all due credit to, as I said, we praise both of those guys a lot for incredible game plans and so on. Something has gone wrong if this is happening. something has gone wrong with Leon Edwards.
Yeah.
So the question is this enough of a different matchup that he just like feels refreshed going into it? I think that's what you got to, if you're a Leon Edwards fan, that's what you got to hope for. You got to be like, this is just a different fight. He comes out and he doesn't immediately get, sucked back into the hell of the last fight. He doesn't get PTSD from being in there. That Prates, despite being aggressive and dangerous, lacks the one singular element that seems to make Leon just go utterly passive at this stage,
right?
Which is aggressive combination punching. Simply like Sean Brady throwing multiple strikes in a row was what just got him going, running away. Prates still does not really do that.
Yeah, he did it's time to talk about Prates. I mean, it's now been some time since that fight with Jeff Neal. We really thought Neal was a super live dog, if he even was a dog in that fight. And while I think neither of us would call it a perfect technical performance, anything close to a perfect technical performance from Prates, I think we both agree that he did show that he had leveled up in terms of like decision-making, awareness, willingness to take advantage of fleeting opportunities, to take the openings that Neal was giving to him. And not to also like the big problem for him against Gary. Obviously, they're very different fighters in so many ways, Gary and Neal. But the big problem was that he allowed Gary to just kind of steal the initiative from him entirely, to keep him busy with lots and lots of bullshit, jabs and feints, and to allow him to build a series of attacks on him because he was passive in responding to the first layers of Gary's striking. And against Neal, that was not the case. He was giving ground in weird ways and like half turning his back, pivoting, and he ran himself into the fence a time or two. But he was at least stringing together bits of footwork and defense and coming back off of them with offense of his own, stealing back the momentum whenever Neal got a bite. And
wasn't stringing together punches though.
He did some. But yeah, he's still fundamentally mostly a one and done guy. But he did string together a few combinations, and a very important thing.
A few?
Yeah, a few. Am I completely misremembering this? There's some combinations from Prates in that fight.
I think there might be like two. I don't know.
Okay. On the other hand,
mostly it is, it is good. We praised it at the time. It is good stuff. He's, he is being assertive the whole time.
Yeah, it's an upgrade.
But mostly it's kind of, he's being assertive in a very kind of Winkle Johnny way, in that he's just like, low kick, body kick, step knee, spinning back kick.
Yeah.
Jab. Like he's just doing a different thing every time.
Yeah.
But he's pivoting with it and he's moving, but he's barely ever throwing like one punch after the other.
Yeah. And he hits the body. He uses his jab effectively. But yeah, you're right for the most part. He's always been like a guy who embraces the devastating power of the switch up more than somebody like Ian Gary, who really builds his attacks. On the other hand, Leon Edwards, again, I think there is some truth to the idea that he is a striker who is actually suited to dealing with wrestlers. Because he's fast, he's accurate, and he's very, very comfortable in the whole realm of wrestling and grappling. And feels capable of being offensive there, even against other very good wrestlers. But for his entire career, he has never been a guy that I thought looks actually comfortable exchanging on the feet. Ever.
Yeah.
He's very rote by nature, has a few set combinations he likes to put together. He has a slip counter and like a pull counter in his arsenal. But on the few occasions where people have tested him with pressure and with combinations, we have many times seen Leon Edwards surprised. And a big part of why the game plans of Sean Brady and Bilal Muhammad were so effective against Edwards is that they both punished him for trying to cheat his way out of bad positions, which other wrestlers earlier in his career did not take advantage of those opportunities. And what I mean is a career-long tendency of Leon Edwards to passively disengage from a face-off with the opponent, not to change angle or get off the fence in such a way that he is controlling the center and controlling the space between himself and his opponent, but to simply square up and try to bail out, move away. And both Bilal and Sean Brady pressed the hell out of him every time he tried to do this. And that, I think, is a huge reason why they got so many opportunities to keep out wrestling him. They just, if you test the assumption Edwards has kind of built into his game that he can sort of just choose to reset whenever he wants, you will find that he's not actually prepared for that test.
Mm-hmm.
And this Prates can be really fucking dangerous with those kind of corralling strikes, running people along the fence and deading them with a single precise blow. That's something he's very good at. All of this might mean nothing if Edwards just starts wrestling him.
Yeah.
Edwards is a very good wrestler. And I assume he's still a very good wrestler when his opponent isn't playing the perfect game plan to make it so that they're the only one dictating the wrestling exchanges.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm going to pick him. He'll be funny. I'm only doing this as at least partially for the memes. But yeah, I don't really trust Prates as a consistent pressure threat. Yeah. He is also galloping around all over the place, making, terrible footwork decisions. He's just, more confident that it's going to work out for him and, more dangerous.
Yeah, no
I can't shake the feeling that he's actually a really bad wrestler who simply hasn't been tested. Same sort of thing that we had with Luffy to at least some extent, and that maybe Leon Edwards will feel a little more at home against someone who is not copying the exact game plan that seems to be the one that ends him.
Yep.
That being said, absolutely no one should follow me on this. Do not take this as betting advice. If you see someone fighting like Leon Edwards has in his last fight, do not ever pick them again.
Yeah.
Against anyone good. Carlos Prates is good. Do not pick him. Repeat, do not do what I am doing.
Well, Phil, you'll be happy to know that I will be betraying you and following my instincts and picking Carlos Prates.
Yeah.
I think between the two of them, he is much likelier to actively punish the passive, sort of the permeable footwork of the other.
Mm-hmm.
In a very decisive way. But also, I just think Leon Edwards has looked really down in the dumps. He looked cooked against Sean Brady.
Like
he didn't want to be there.
It's anyone who has fights like that. You're talking, especially someone who's shown the ability to win fights before, right, is suddenly showing that it's gone. When someone gets to that level, when they're doing right, the Calvin Kattar thing,
right,
don't ever pick them. This is a stupid pick by me.
Yeah. Like I think about the conversation we had about Brian Ortega.
Yeah.
He reaching the point in his career where he's too tough to give up, but
yeah,
he doesn't actually have the wherewithal to go out there and seize the win. And I think Leon Edwards has kind of always been more on one side of that spectrum than the other. I think
he's never been like a natural instinctive fighter the way that like an Ortega is. He's never
right.
That was one of the things that made the boom headshot KO such a shocker, is that ain't how Leon Edwards has traditionally won his fights.
Yeah. It's also what made the third fight with Usman so unbelievably cool, because he seemed to have, for that one night, conquered all of his worst tendencies, right? Gone out there very focused and commanding. But
yeah,
I think
that was just clearly something that he spent.
Right, yeah. For basically all of his career except for that, he has tended to be a guy who will sort of just like allow his opponent to grind him down to the point where like through call me if I'm projecting too much, but like through a sort of process of like self-loathing will decide like, no, I'm gonna keep fighting. Like, I don't know if this makes sense.
I don't think that's the case for like Leon Edwards. I think Leon Edwards is, his main thing is that he wants to fight control fights that he's not actually quite capable of having. He wants to have like a perfect control fight where he's, dictating the striking and the wrestling at all times.
Yeah.
And he just can't ever do it. I don't think he's not a Lionheart. He's just like, he would just stubbornly get back to it after he would get dropped by Brian Barberena or have like a rough round against Gunnar Nelson or whatever it was.
Yeah.
He might have even had some weird moments against Peter Sabota now that you mention it. But, this kind of thing all the time.
Tumenov back in the day, he had a rough round against
him.
Yeah, I just wonder how big a gap there is between sort of Leon Edwards' sort of like sullen resilience and becoming the kind of guy who simply keeps fighting even though he doesn't really want to do it anymore.
Yeah. You're basically, I think his psychology is that he wanted fights to be perfect.
Yeah.
And now they're a very, very long way away from being perfect.
Yeah.
And I think it's just incredibly destructive for him.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So I'm going to pick Prates. I would kind of like to see
everyone should. Come on, let's be real.
I would really like to see Leon Edwards go out there and ragdoll him. I think that would be cool.
Mm-hmm. He's a cool fighter when he's actually, fighting.
Totally.
But yeah, don't pick people who look like Leon Edwards.
Yeah. So,
yep.
On that note, find us on social media at Eva Greg Jackson, at Boxing Bush. Those are our handles on Twitter. Check out the Heavy Hands Patreon. There'll be a little extra stuff from this week's episode, which is already, as you can imagine, since the main show is already so long. And also Heavy Henka will be returning this month. Sumo is back, and Miguel Class are going to be on the Heavy Hands Patreon talking about that. If you haven't joined us for that in the past, please do. We have a great time, and it's really not so expensive to support the show on Patreon. And we'll talk to you next week. Until then, if you came here today for the finer points of Face Punch and you came to the right place, this has been Heavy Hands.